this part, we talk about indicators of child sexual abuse. Remember, we talked about sexual abuse in children, and to be able to help a child, one needs to know what is it that indicates abuse in children. Number one is a child kissing with tongue thrust out in another's tongue. You know the way adults kiss deeply? When a child is kissing in that way, that shows a child who has been exposed to child sexual abuse. The second point is direct or indirect reporting. You've heard children saying, Mom, nikwambie, nani na nani walikuwa wanafanya hivi, you know, or in the indirect reporting, that is indirect reporting. Indirect reporting is where children will tell you, so I heard children in school talking about sex, and they were saying it's cis. Then a parent would need to sit presently, listen, and just say, tell me everything they were saying. But what do parents do? They just tell you, just go out there and don't tell me those kind of things. So you bar the child from reporting what is it that they may have experienced or watched. That way of telling it, that indicator is pelvic thrusting against another's child, against the ground or against the wall. You know the way, like pumping or something like that. When you see a child behaving like that with a wall, with another child, with the ground, that is an indicator that this child has watched, experienced, or gone through some form of sexual abuse. The fourth indicator is physical genital injuries. The fifth indicator is fondling another's genitals. It is very uncommon for children to go touching other children's genitals. Should that happen, then that needs to give you concern because it's not a child's behavior completely. The second indicator is discomfort around genitals when bathing. Don't touch that one, it's painful, don't go there. Or you suddenly realize that a child who you would bathe comfortably is now very keen when it comes to genitals. You might need to want to know what is it that happened that made them feel differently about their genitals, because children's genitals are like any other part according to them. It's only adults who understand that our genitals are slightly different in sensitive areas. But if a child is behaving sensitively, then clearly something needs to be investigated. The seventh point is unexplained conflicts that genital area hurts. Unless you hurt them while showering them or something happened to them, then when a child says genital area hurts, that is cause for investigation. The eighth indicator of child sexual abuse is presence of sexually transmitted infections. Another very complex indicator is when a child is manifesting either of the ones we have already shared, the signs, or two or three of them or all of them, and then they have sleep disturbances, nightmares, and in their nightmares always seek to understand from your child what is it they experienced during their dream, what is it they saw. If they tell you someone is touching their genitals or doing something with them, then that would point to sexual abuse. But even when they cannot really quite tell what was happening, if you have noticed any of the other indicator, then that would definitely mean you need to investigate further. The number 10 indicator of sexual abuse in children, when you see a child playing with toys and they are playing in such a way. For example, when a male child is playing with toys and using their penis, then that would indicate there has been presence. Or a girl is playing with some stuff, some toys, and they are moving them to their sexual organs, then that also would indicate that there has been presence of sexual abuse. Now, indicator number 11. When a child who was very playful is no longer interested in play, they are isolated. If they're in the house, they are all by themselves, seated in a corner, most of the time a bit worried, then this is a sure sign of child sexual abuse. Indicator number 12. When a child goes back to a stage that they had previously passed. An example of this is bedwetting or thumb sucking. When a child moved away, they stopped bedwetting kitambo, and then all of a sudden they start bedwetting again and thumb sucking, and it's a bit consistent. One day, not one day alone, it's one day, then after 2 days again, then it's continuous, then that would be a pointer to child sexual abuse. An indicator number 13. When children are afraid of adults of the same gender. You realize this consistency of a child being very afraid of male. Every time they encounter a male, they are very afraid. Or every time they encounter a female, they get afraid. That would be a pointer to child sexual abuse by that particular gender. Indicator number 14. When a child acts out or talks in detailed way about sexual behavior. Like in one case, a child came to the mom, then hugged the mom, then kissed her cheeks, then her lips, then from there opened the mom's top and went down, moved her hands down, then eventually went under, and the mom got concerned, only to realize that this child was abused by a lady friend of hers who was living in her house. So the child was acting out a behavior they had learned through sexual abuse. And the last indicator is when a child is afraid of being with a sibling, remaining with a sibling they have been with. And this happens mostly when sexual abuse is happening among siblings. When they are so afraid, they are overly involved, because it's either way. They can be afraid or they are overly involved. They want to sleep in the other person's bed, be with them all the time, lie on them in some certain way. They hug closely. They are always, insinuating sexual behavior. Then that is a sign or an indicator of child sexual abuse. So we come to the end of our part 2.